Welcome to the Unzip Mind podcast. My name is Nick Smith. I'm here with Greg Minikis and Dylan Jessen.
Well, hello.
Hey, guys.
Hey, welcome back.
Good to be back. So we're going to continue our conversation about nature, the healing power of nature, natural therapies. Last week, we talked more about, I would say, the sort of the practical aspect. Like you've seen firsthand how your, would you say clients in wilderness therapy? Was that the kids that you were working with? You saw them benefit. You saw them processing and having cathartic emotional experiences. You yourself as a child would escape and climb the trees and feel that sort of stillness and that connection. So that was like observable benefits that we've seen from nature, from interacting with nature. So let's talk about more of the kind of theoretical and mystical stuff. Because it's something that you and me have talked about at length. That was one of the first things that we sort of connected over was like, you know, we went on a big hike and we started talking about like the green brain hypothesis, and I brought up like Taoism and sort of that connection with nature. So we could start. What is the green? I mean, again, we are not licensed professionals, so any sort of like big theory we might butcher, but we're still going to talk about it because it's fun to talk about.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. That's one of the things we connected on, because your idea of the green brain theory is slightly different than my idea.
I haven't even been exposed to the theory. Like you introduced me to the theory, and then I probably just went off on my own sort of thoughts about it. But so tell me, like, what have you read, or like what do you know about the green brain theory?
Right. So there's a gentleman out of England, Pat. Ooh. So we will attach his research in the show note.
Yeah, we should.
But he has a theory that he titled the green brain theory, and it in it he breaks down that our old reptilian brain, right, is the blue brain, and that is our primal selves, right, and then your frontal lobe, or your top areas, are red, right, so our more developed brains are our cognitive abilities, okay. That's your red. So when you're harmonious, it's a green brain. When you're in a balanced state, which it plays into nature, right? And plays into being in natural spaces. When you are harmonious, you are in a green state.
Harmonious in that you're sort of like amygdala, your like lizard brain isn't in fight or flight. Your forebrain isn't busy with all these sort of distracting thoughts that prevent you from sort of losing focus or being connected to your body. Is that like the balance where everything's sort of like
you're present?
Where you can be present? Is that what it is?
Okay. Yeah. So when you are in a space where you are connected with your natural world, when you are, like you were saying, you are not overstimulated, you're in a green mind state. And then red is when you are too busy, when you are in that flight or fight state, when you are stressed because of everything going on around you. So that's kind of the basis of my understanding of the green brain theory.
And then the green in green brain, I thought had something to do with like seeing foliage and like green. Is that part of it?
Impact, the impact that natural spaces have on being able to bring us to a state of homeostasis.
Gotcha.
So homeostasis is our body's resting space. Right. And people can have a place of homeostasis that is not good. It is where we consistently keep our body. So homeostasis can change, right? But that being said, our natural resting place is within green spaces, blue spaces, like natural spaces.
Is that why a lot of facilities, especially in like hospital settings or treatment places, will have those kind of colors, I imagine?
Yeah. And
which I'm sure, I mean, think of the prison system, which is completely opposite. You know, that's got to play into that mindset.
And that's a conversation too that's a thing we can dive into, and how colors and things can have impacts on how we perceive things. It's like why Burger King uses the colors they use, right?
Because it looks like sort of ketchup and mustard. And
the blue relaxes you, and you're going to stay longer.
Oh, okay.
Right. So they've clued in.
What about McDonald's?
Yeah, I was thinking like the red and yellow of the McDonald's sign.
Target.
Yeah, but you would think that would set. Is it because it's
in and out,
eye-catching?
In and out. You're getting more people in and out the door.
That's a good point.
A bright yellow lightning. I think there was something sort of appetizing and appealing about that. Like when you go into grocery stores, you see all these different packaged foods, brightly colored, and it is sort of very appealing.
Yeah, what you're drawn to.
Yeah, it draws you, but not in like a not in a way that's sort of harmonious with our evolutionary sort of imperatives. It's just like, it's all sort of forebrain, like, ooh, like my sort of thinky, modern urban brain sees all these brightly colored packages. And I think like, oh, if I put that in my mouth, I'll get like this big flavor.
Because it's
explosion.
impulse. It's quick. It's impulse.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
it trains your brain more, or that's how your brain goes, rather than that relaxed
Yeah,
kind
and
of.
the natural world slows us down, right? And that's the thing. Like, so studies have shown that, like, even standing in front of a wooded space and looking at it,
Yeah. Yeah.
within time, your body will start decreasing its stress hormones, increasing its pleasure hormones, right? It's relaxing hormones. So it's what it's all, to break it down more, is what it's all affecting is your parasympathetic and your sympathetic nervous system.
Yes.
Okay, so
I'm trying to remember which is which. Isn't parasympathetic the sort of rest and digest
Yeah.
state? Okay.
yep, sympathetic's fight or flight.
Okay. Gotcha.
So that's your reactivity, and the parasympathetic is what shuts it down.
Gotcha.
Right? And the problem is where we are at right now in our evolution and in our development in urban cultures, we are in a continuous state of a sympathetic nervous autonomic sympathetic nervous boom.
Yeah.
Right? We are always in this constant state of stimulation.
Of an activation, like
Yeah.
constantly on edge, like maybe not full on fight or flight anxiety, but I think a lot of people, especially if we have anxieties about like dating or our jobs, money, social media, or just like the feeling of being stuck in four walls, isolated, because we're, especially since the pandemic, we're more socially isolated than we ever have been probably. There is this constant activation, and that's very, very different from what is like a healthy and restful healing state.
Well, I think about too in our line of work, you have people that are struggling, even if they're struggling with anxiety or suicidal thoughts or even complete psychosis, they're in their fight or flight.
Yeah.
But then once they're able to go outside and they feel that connection with the grass, they're laying in the grass and you see that pure connection in a sense, or that they're just present in that moment, where you see that bit of healing is incredible to see.
Yeah.
Well, in that complete tension reduction, and that's their parasympathetic their parasympathetic nervous system affecting, like taking its role, because it's allowed to all of a sudden. And that's the thing. Like, the way I see it is, we are at a place right now where most of us have broken autonomic nervous systems. Like, we are in a stuck state of a sympathetic system where we aren't able to shut down. We're not able to
Like
rest and digest.
Yeah.
We're in this, and there's a talk where Jim Carrey, he's on a podcast and he's talking.
Jim
Yes.
Carrey. Oh,
yeah,
really?
he's on a podcast and he's talking about depression.
Oh yeah. I've seen.
And it's very powerful. It's a beautiful talk he has, and he's talking about how, instead of looking at it as like this defeat, it's like, no, your body needs it's deep rest.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, we don't get that right now. So with nature, when you go walk, when you go be in it, when you're in the park and you see like what you're just talking about, or like just even put your hands in the grass.
Yeah.
Right. Your body is feeling the energy of the earth. Your body is feeling back to where we came from. And that parasympathetic nervous system is engaged, and that deep rest is activated, and your body's able just to go and release. And
That
it's powerful.
it is power. And I, recently I've been reading this book, because I knew we were doing a topic similar on this. I knew this is a big passion for you, Dylan. You bring up our natural world quite often in episodes, and it's always been a personal like quest for myself to kind of like understand or like feel, or subconsciously, what I don't realize. But I picked up this book called Forest Bathing. It's by Dr. Quinn Lee, and he's the chairman of the Japanese Society for Forest Medicine. And there's a lot of really good points in there that I've never really thought about or heard of. And one is what you just mentioned, and what brings that up is where he says that society kind of altered or started changing when they invented synthetic rubber and like put soles on shoes, and really then people started to get separated from the natural world, which I just think is a really good point. And it brings me back to, patients at work. And when you see them take off their shoes and they're feeling the grass, or you see that change in people when they get to the beach and then they take their shoes off and they feel that sand in between their feet.
Especially like first day of summer or first day on the beach that summer, like you haven't felt the sand between your toes in a year. And then you're like, oh, like that feeling. Yeah.
I just wonder the subconscious effects of that people don't really realize the benefits that they're receiving. And then the people that do understand that and then use that as like a tool.
Well, and that's, if you look into like a lot of Eastern philosophies, or if you look into a lot of older practices, the idea is that our feet are grounding, right? Our feet sense a lot of things. They're very sensitive. There's a lot of neurons down there. You're connecting, you're grounding, like look at yoga, right? You're grounding your body's energy. And because if you look into Taoism, right? And if you look into, again, philosophies, all beings, all creatures, all things have energy. We all put off energy. And even in our industrial world, there's electrical energy, there's all these other things. But in nature, the flowers, the leaves, the soil, all have energies that are emitting. And when we remove our rubberized soles and we are naturally putting our feet, because, we didn't have those. If anything, we crafted from leather, or we crafted something just to break the barrier so that we wouldn't pierce our foot on a thorn.
Right.
But that's still nature. That's still natural, that leather that you're on, and you're still feeling the soil. You're still feeling things that are around you.
And it breathes. It's breathable. Yeah.
And so your energy is being transferred, and you're in the earth's energy, the soil, everything is being transferred to you. Right. So there's this harmonious symbiotic relationship happening. And I've been connected to nature because I've been very fortunate. Right. And I do believe that there are not necessarily like, here we go.
Let's get hippie with it.
I don't believe that we have these paths just grained for us and like you get born and that's what you do. And then there's the end point. I do believe though that there is a there's paths that we take. Right. And whichever one I ended up on was geared to what I do now. Because even in my elementary school, like when I say I grew up rural, I mean rural. We were taught wilderness, like survival tactics and things in my elementary school.
That's
so
awesome.
it was called the Vermont Learning Center back then. It's something now. Yeah, it's something else now. And this is in 6th grade, or it might be 5th grade. But we work with them, and so the Vermont Learning Center comes to us, and they teach us about deciduous trees and evergreens and how to identify this, and they teach us about the natural world and all this other things. And we go there, and we learn about syrup, and we learn about all this other stuff, and it accumulates into an overnight experience where we are given a tarp, and we build our own shelter, and we're taught how to use a fire and cook, and like this is like again like I think 5th or 6th grade. Right?
I went on one hike. I think in
so
school,
dope.
None of that. That's incredible.
So, and why I bring that up is there was one night, and this is I think was on the overnight, but one of the people there that worked there, he was Native. He's an indigenous individual, and he took us out in the woods, right, on a hike, and taught us all how to walk looking up, right? Instead of, and it's interesting to say that, right? To say like we were taught how to walk, right? Essentially. But he showed us the practice of slowing your shit down and being intentional with your steps and walking in a fashion where you can feel the ground while looking up and taking in the environment so you can see. And we're doing this at night, which was on a beautiful moonlit night one night. Wow. And we're doing that. And like to this day, like I learned that when I was 9.
Yeah.
Ish.
Sure.
In that area. 32. I still remember that vividly, and I still use that as a practice. And it's to slow that down, and you're taking in the world. You're in that natural environment where we want to be. And like we were talking about last week, Greg, where we were talking about being in nature and how ADHD is actually like beneficial because you're getting all these stimuluses and you're watching these animals. You see the birds, you see this animal over here, you feel the wind, and you're getting all these smells, right? Like Nick, you brought up the senses, right? that's exactly what you're doing. You're engaging your body in healthy stimulation that's being activated and engaged, and you're being replenished.
Hell yeah.
And it's just like, whew, I want to go on a hike after this.
Well, I think in the, it talks about in the book, I think in Japan, and you might have some insight on this, Greg, but there's Buddhism and Shinto.
Shinto is the indigenous
Shinto?
Japanese religion, yeah.
Yeah, which believes a lot that like spirits are they're around
Yeah.
us, right? Like
Kami.
they're in the rocks, they're in the trees,
Yeah.
they're in the breeze. And I think a lot culturally they create a lot of all their items out of trees, right? And for, all their like a lot of their silverware and
Yeah,
a lot of
yeah.
their natural kind of natural things, because that's the interesting point that most people know, common knowledge, right? Like if we don't have trees, like we can't survive, we can't breathe. But if you really think about that, if you really think about that, those trees aren't there, the trees die, we die.
Yeah.
We need them to breathe. And people who can survive as a vegetarian, right? Like we're just produce so much from the natural world and things in our environment.
No, it's a powerful concept. There's this documentary on YouTube. It's called Shinto, Man, Gods, and Nature. And it's from the 70s. And I just put it on sometimes. Sometimes I'll just like put on music and put it on silent. It's just so calming to just watch them. And they have these rituals. And they're all like, Shinto is an animist religion. So it believes that there's kami, spirits in everything. And just believing that, having sort of imbuing even ordinary things like trees and rocks with the sort of like sacred identity, like every rock is sacred, every tree is sacred. That's a powerful concept. That's really it's really influenced me. Like when I go out in nature, I really do try to sort of like keep that mentality in mind, like having a lot of respect for everything. Like I actually I tend to like salute the forest a little bit when I go in, and salute it when I leave. Just like thank you for like letting me in your space. I have sort of cultivated a love. Like I've tried, my old martial arts school, Blue Dragon School, back east in Jersey, my old Sifu was a very kind of mystical dude. Like he was really into natural practices. He had done some, he called them vision quests. I don't think that he was being sort of culturally appropriative. I think he might have actually trained with somebody who was trained in like Native American spiritual practices. I don't know for sure, but all I know is that whether he had sort of appropriated these practices, it has had a major impact on me. Like we would do fall retreats every year to one place or another, and one place that we went was the Blue Deer Center for Ancestral Learning. I think I might have mentioned this to Jessa during our conversation with her, but that is a very beautiful place. The guy who runs it, what is his name? So I can't remember. He wrote a book called Plant Spirit Medicine, but he trained in Mexico with Huichol shamans. Huichol is an indigenous group in Mexico, and so he trained with them, and like he's just being around him, being in that environment. I volunteered there after one of the fall retreats. I volunteered there for a week, and he was doing this sort of like plant spirit medicine seminar, and so I got to talk with him a lot. I got to talk with the students a lot. He let me sit in on a sacred fire, and a lot of what they talked about just resonated so strongly with me. Like the river, like the river had, I can't remember the name of the river, but they gave the river a gender. It was she. And there was a lot of respect for the river. And at the end of my stay there, they had me take like a little handful of tobacco and just kind of like offer it to the river. And yeah, just being there, man, like it was so healing, such powerful healing, just being in that environment. And just trying to imbue all of nature with the sacred and feel like all of this is sacred. Like it's really like those experiences have really changed my life.
Yeah. And I had a question for you, Dylan, I guess to kind of combine to, so that term forest bathing, and why it's a question is because I'm still learning, right? Like it was a new term to me. How do you see it beneficial as a treatment modality? How do you kind of combine those two, if that makes sense?
Love it. Yup. About that question. So forest bathing is amazing. It was a phrase started in Japan. It's called Shirin-yoku. Okay. And it was actually a phrase started as a recreational phrase to get the Japanese people to connect with the natural world and start using it in recreation phrase. And it became something that they noticed was beneficial obviously, and then they started using that name in Shinryoku to start identifying it as a therapy, and now it's natural therapy or nature therapy. And so now Shinryoku is more in terms of the natural forest bathing and how it is beneficial to us. And 100%. And like actually in Japan, there are specific gardens and specific parks that are developed and built for forest bathing. So deliberately built for you to wander, because the idea is that you go in intentionally unintentional. So you go in with nothing. So the aim is to just go walk in the woods. That's it. And that's the name. It's there in the name. It's forest bathing. You are literally going in and bathing yourself in the natural world.
Yeah.
I like the idea of being intentionally unintentional. That's huge.
Yeah, and I think look at it this way. Like when you go walk your dog, right? When you walk her, you used to live downtown Portland. And I remember you telling it sucked.
Yeah.
You're like, it stresses me out. It stresses her out. It's not good, but it has to be done.
Yeah.
Now, where we are,
Yeah.
we're more in the outskirts of Portland,
Right.
up on the hillside. When you walk her now, what's your experience?
Oh, it's much different. She's much different.
How so?
You know, just her anxiety. When I was downtown, there's very, we talk about that fight or flight. Really, you're on edge. There's very seedy individuals around. Most that are homeless or transient, and a lot that are using narcotics, that are loud. And so she would go straight towards the door back to the apartment. She wouldn't want to go for walks. She would go outside potty, and then she wants to go home. And you see a very big difference out here where it is, the only way I can explain it is more of a calm environment. It's more like home, you know, just walking around, and she doesn't have those kind of behaviors. So
how do you feel when you're walking her?
Oh, I mean, the same way. She just may show it more externally, but internally, I don't feel on edge. I don't feel like I'm evaluating everything, watching my back. I feel like I'm at home.
That's the answer to your question.
Yeah.
That's the impact Shinryoku has right there.
Yeah.
It's you are at home. And that's the thing. Our home, as human beings, our home is not this built world. Our home is the natural. We are. There's a book that is an amazing book that I strongly believe anybody who's interested in reconnecting with nature should read. It's called Ishmael, and it's amazing. It's one of the only books I've read that was an assigned reading that I was like, yup, and it lives in. I love it, and I promote it all the time. And it's the author wrote it. Ishmael is a talking gorilla.
Oh.
Yep.
That's a good premise.
Yep. He puts an ad in a paper, and the narrator answers the ad and discovers that it's a talking gorilla. But he's talking about, he's using Ishmael is the narrator, and he's using him as the protagonist to talk about how humans have separated ourselves from the natural world. And he breaks it down to givers and takers. And now we used to, when we were hunters and gatherers, we were givers, right? Because we did exactly that. What you were talking about with Sifu and what you were doing at the retreat, when you gave back to the river, and we give back our spirits. Because I don't necessarily do where you give thanks. I do give thanks to when I go out to backpacking and when I'm in the woods. I give thanks for the space that I'm in.
Hell yeah.
Right? Because there are energies everywhere.
Yeah.
And you can feel them. And in this book, that's our givers. We have become takers. Right? It's pretty obvious, right?
Yeah.
Look at how much we have devastated.
Yeah.
We have quite literally rapidly sped up the trajectory of our planet, right? We have almost made it to where we are going to destroy our planet, and our answer to that is, oh, well, let's go inhabit Mars.
Yeah.
If we have the ability to do that, why don't we have the ability to fix our planet?
Yeah.
Neil deGrasse Tyson said that shit, and he is 100. That man is Why isn't he president? First of all, okay.
Yeah, he's fine.
But not to detract, but with this, where I'm getting at with that is there's the beautiful analogy and a beautiful image he uses where he's talking about as a human species we're in a plane that's going down, and why I just brought all that up is our reaction. We are pedaling faster and faster, hoping that that's going to create the lift we need to pick ourselves back up. We're trying to develop all these things, and we're going to do these electric cars, and we're going to do this, and we think the industrialization of it and the technology is going to help us rewrite this airship and correct us, and we're going to take flight again.
Right.
All we're doing is pedaling faster to the bottom of this ravine.
Yeah, we had it right in the past, maybe.
Yep. Yes.
There's a fact that I wrote down from this book that it just like hit me hard. That it's a by the Environmental Protection Agency. It says that the average American now spends 93% of their time indoors. What are we doing inside?
Ew.
Looking at our screens.
Yeah.
You know,
Or reading, or not being our natural selves, right? And that's huge.
Yeah.
That's ew.
Now, I do love, so downtown Portland, there are parts of downtown Portland that are kind of dangerous and that are, we have a large homeless population. A lot of them have no place to go. There's more resources in downtown Portland than there are at other places. And so for a lot of people there, it's like, well, this is where I can get access to basic resources. So it's not like I resent that people are there, but it's a pretty well documented fact that within the sort of homeless community in downtown Portland, there are some people who prey on other people.
Yeah.
So
And-
yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
Sure.
One note I want to say too, when we say homeless, I know that there is another term called houseless.
Yeah.
And we don't want to disrespect that at all, but within our general Portland area, homelessness is the more common term. Houseless is a new term, but I just want to say we don't disrespect that term.
Anyway, what I was saying, so that is one aspect of downtown Portland, but Portland itself and sort of the surrounding neighborhood, I'm not sure if it was when it was founded, but I think it's a beautifully planned city. It's
One of my favorites, hands down.
It's so beautifully integrated with these lovely urban spaces with beautiful architecture, awesome coffee shops and stuff, and all these amazing parks. Laurelhurst, Markham,
waterfront.
Forest Park,
Yeah.
the waterfront.
When you-
beautifully integrated natural green spaces into this urban environment.
Yeah, when you look out across the cityscape of Portland, when you look out at the cityscape, like I love Denver. This is not any I'm not throwing shade on Denver. I love that city.
Sure.
But if you look out at Denver, also it's a very arid environment. It's dry, all this stuff. But when you look out at Denver, you got farmland on the east, you got the Rockies on the west, and then you have a city.
Yeah, just
and
concrete.
It's very built. Right?
Yeah.
But when you look out on Portland, sure, we have downtown area where you got Big Pink and you got the new what building just went up? Oh my gosh.
I don't know what they're called, but just a lot of skyscrapers.
Yeah. So you have all these big buildings and you can see them, sure, but it's right here. But also all you see in between these buildings is beautiful big trees and it's green.
Yeah.
And at night, it's the other thing that I love about Portland, it's dark.
Yeah.
If at night, yes, there are streetlights. Don't get me wrong. There are streetlights at certain spots, but for the majority of the time, it's not lit up.
Yeah.
It is a dark area, which also blows my mind because nobody puts their headlights on. I don't get this. I don't. Okay, that's a sidebar.
I haven't noticed that.
But going back to that, it's we had it right before, and during the Industrial Revolution, especially, and before this, right, there was a point in time in our evolution where we're like, we're better than that. And we removed ourselves and we put ourselves as beings above the natural world.
Yeah.
Which I don't get that because we are still natural beings. We were not brought here by some extraterrestrial being, and we were not gods that just, boop, I'm here.
Right.
No, we evolved just like all the other animals.
Do you think it's because people started using their minds more than feeling?
Yeah.
Or do you think it's just it's more than that?
Well, no, they perceived things from an anthropocentric view, and they said, well, I can talk and I can build these things. I'm better than that thing that poops outside and grunts,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
There's also an element of class exploitation there, like factory workers didn't have much access to green spaces, whereas like, the sort of economic elite have always had the ability to like go, summer in Martha's Vineyard or something,
travel.
yeah, travel or just
like look at their yards.
yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah, these
Look at
beautiful
low
gardens.
income. Look at low income housing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's drab.
Yeah.
It's
Housing
not-
projects are there's no green. There's maybe a couple trees, but it's just like concrete and then just these tall towers.
Yeah, and they're usually in urbanized areas. But then
Yeah.
you look at more affluent individuals, and there's green space.
Yeah.
That's
Space.
not by accident.
Yeah,
they
yeah.
may not know why they're doing it, but they're doing it because it's pleasant.
Right.
It's nice to look at.
So I think a city like Portland might have been. I mean, again, speculating, not a professional, not a architecture major. I think Portland, the way it was planned, I think was partially in reaction to that. Portland has always been sort of like, Oregon has a complicated history, but Portland has always been sort of a progressive, pretty like politically liberal place. And I think the founders, by Markham Park, there's this sort of there's this diagram and this historical blurb that talks about sort of the founding of Markham Park. And I think the park was founded and like the city was sort of built in a way to really try to integrate natural spaces into the urban environment. And, when I was training at Blue Dragon School, it's a pretty mystical place. It's, internal like Taoist martial arts. Taoism is a philosophy that's very deeply connected to nature. So a lot of my fellow students, myself, we sort of idealize this like this monk who like lives in the mountains, totally disconnected from society, just in nature all the time. And that works for some people, but I don't think I could live like that. I do want to live in society where the art is, where there's theaters and coffee shops and like cool just comedy shows and things popping up. And so as much as I can, I'm trying to sort of integrate nature and spending time in nature into an urban lifestyle. I love living in a city. My mental health is the best it's ever been since I'm sort of like connected to like a bunch of people and culture and stuff like that. So I don't want to give that up. And I also know that I need a connection with nature in order to be fully healthy. So it's a puzzle, but we are blessed to live in that environment. But it's sort of optimal for me. I really like that balance.
Well, you can also put plants in your house, right? That's nature.
Yeah.
And that helps you. But that being said, I don't know if it was by design or what, but it works. It's dope.
It works, yeah.
And I live above Markham Park. Like, it's amazing. Like, I can literally walk out my door, go not very far.
Great view.
I have and I have an access point not far, and I'm on trails. And I've spent hours hiking the trails.
I love Markham
because it
Park,
goes up and through so many things. And you forget and the same thing with Forest Park. The way it's laid out, you forget you're in you don't hear the urban. You
certainly don't see it.
Yeah, you're in this space where you hear these birds and there's moss and there's just little creeks flowing in it. You can I love it. Nick, now that you have started kind of diving in, especially since our relationship has blossomed, and because this is clearly mostly what. Not only do I only not talk about nature on our episodes, I talk about nature a lot.
Every episode.
Arguably. Yeah, and most of the time when we talk, it comes up. So
For sure.
now that has happened, we've started going on hikes, and now you're diving into forest bathing, and you're diving into really understanding the connections of it. How is that? Has that changed your thought process? Has that changed your attraction to nature, or like, what's going on with you? What's happening?
It's really connected the dots. It's just like, we talk about ADHD, right? I was officially diagnosed very late in life, a few years ago. So I was 30, and when that happened, it really, then I really started to connect all the dots in my life. And so it's the same with this. Like I think about how I've always said the one time I can turn off my brain and not stress is camping. It's part of being camping or being out camping away from both electronics and from lights and what have you, and having a fire. It's those aspects. And I think as I connect those dots, I think for me, the fire is part of that, being able to zone out and like just be there.
Yeah.
And so, the more that I learn about this and like, and connect those dots, then I start really thinking about, okay, how can I dive into this more? Like, how can maybe these issues that I've had, I have the answer all along. If I just explore that a little bit more, so it's just very enlightening for me and my personal life and things that I've been lacking in my personal life.
Well, it's good that you're staying curious. I'm staying curious. I'm trying to learn and grow, kind of integrate nature into my life in a better way. You've always been since I met you, you've always been like a great resource on this kind of stuff. Like I've always been able to pick your brain about, if it wasn't for you, I am not sure how my backpacking trip last summer would have gone because you gave me some very helpful advice. So no, it's great, man. I love being on this journey with you guys.
Gentlemen, I'm just so elated right now. Just hearing Nick, hearing how you are connecting those dots and you're able to like find your little roadmap. And Greg, you are developing further your connection and understanding and it just makes me so happy.
It's good.
I'm here. Like I will, I've never felt more in a role of like a guide. Honestly, I'm like, yo, backpacks on, let's do this. Because I love sharing this aspect and like it's obviously something that I am so genuinely passionate about.
So many of our episodes are about alternative treatments, right? Like things that either people don't know a lot about or haven't really explored fully. Like that's on a personal selfish note. That's the same for me. Like I've never been on a backpacking trip. Like I've never, besides those camping trips where I have those slight moments, those are aspects of possibly dealing with issues that I have, therapeutic aspects that, I'm more interested in learning more about it because it goes back to not using your mind and feeling. And to me, I can just, without having the experience, I can feel the benefits of being in touch more with the natural world.
Yeah. That's what you're getting in touch with the natural world and yourself.
Yeah.
Because you're taking away all these barriers that we have built. And now you're being exposed. Like honestly, in this society, and when I say this society, I'm talking first world built economic industrial society. We have all these issues.
Yeah.
Right? We have all these separations.
Depression.
We have all these clinically diagnosed problems.
Yeah.
Okay. Go somewhere where there's what we did deem as third world. Right? That doesn't have access to see what Americans have, doesn't have access to see what first world people have.
Yeah.
Go there and try to find a depressed person.
Yeah. Honestly.
Try to find somebody who wants more than what they have at that moment.
Yeah.
You're going to be hard pressed.
Yeah.
Because how can you be depressed, right, when you have everything that you need because it's been given to you by the natural world and you have community around you because you have to depend on your tribe or you have to depend on the people around you in your village to get the tasks done to keep everybody alive.
Yeah. Rates of depression, those kinds of societies are really low compared to ours. Yeah.
And like there's happiness, true happiness.
That says a lot.
And they're connected. And we look at that like, you can't flush your toilet. Ew.
You don't have this?
Yeah. And I'm like, yo, that is like, that right there, heaven. What's up? Like, yes, give me that. Some of the best places I've ever been have been pooping over a log.
Yeah.
It's great. It's great.
That's deep.
Yep. Some profound moments have happened while I'm leaning up against a tree out in the woods and you're like, life's going to be okay.
Yeah, I can visualize that all too well.
Yeah. This is going to be
great.
That's
a great visual note to end the episode.
Yeah, exactly. So, and on that note, a reminder, we are running a little
giveaway
contest. So in the previous episode, if you haven't watched it yet, go ahead and watch it. It's going to be on our
listen.
Listen, and it's on the more practical parts of natural therapeutics. Our nature therapy, and go ahead, listen, watch that. And on our Facebook page, if you guys will find our episodes, they're both going to be our natural episodes, or our nature-based episodes. Comment and like on those posts, and it has to be on both of them. And in August, we're going to go through, and we're going to pick a random one of you wonderful fans. And we're going to give away some merch, and you're going to get a discounted card to our merch website. And
That's exciting. Yeah. If you like our episode, like, subscribe, share it. We give us some love on social media. Post about us. We have a Patreon. You can check that out. Our website's unzipmind.com. And yeah, we appreciate all your support, and thank you guys for coming and making this happen again.
Cool. Thanks,
Yeah.
guys.
Thank you, guys.
See you next
everybody.
week.
Bye.